Wake up in the morning, get my grind on. Hop in the shower, brush my teeth and get my shine on. Hey, Scholar Mac, we taking trips to different time zones. I feel like E.T. way these bitches trying to follow home. Wake up in the morning, get my grind on. Hop in the shower.
Welcome everybody to Living on Purpose podcast. We're your host, James Hagler, and myself, Jason Wilson. Today, we have Asif Ali, accomplished legend in arena football. Welcome to the show, man.
Appreciate it, man. And I really appreciate this opportunity to be on your guys' platform, your podcast. I've been following y'all. Obviously you guys are on multiple platforms. Hopefully I can get there with my own platform. And and James, obviously, rest in peace, to your dad. I mean, that's still, it's still kind of heartbreaking and kind of shocking, to think about. So, but obviously, James Tag, go ahead.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I still can't believe it. It's almost coming up after February. It'd be a year, man. You know what I'm saying? And it's every time we get closer to that year mark, it's like, man, I can't believe he's gone. It's just too soon, man.
Too soon,
Yeah, we were just talking about the Dallas Cowboys losing last weekend, fans. We're going to continue this conversation. Go ahead, Asif, man. Just fire away. What are your thoughts?
Man, you know what, man? My thoughts are, how about them Cowboys? Man, Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, on Undisputed. I was watching that on Monday, and and Stephen A. on First Take. A lot of it's predictable, because my podcast is pretty much kind of sports focused. I interview fellow football players like myself and guys who play in the NFL, who played at the highest level. But it's just like, you watch on TV. I mean, you can't help but take enjoyment in Dallas Cowboys and Cowboys Nation suffering. So,
right.
I just, but yeah, as an Irish fan, we had an opportunity. Dallas came back. You got to give it to him. When Jimmy threw that pick in the fourth, and, Dak, obviously, he helped drive them down length to the field. I think, if they just called the right play, in the fourth, and obviously if Dak was able to get out of bounds instead of trying to go up the field, it could have potentially been a different ball game. So I still got to give the Cowboys their props for that. But, hey, as long as my Niners advance, I'm sitting here smiling.
Well, I thought that he should have been running the ball a little bit more. If that was Lamar Jackson, it would have been no. The guy, he would have scored.
It would have been 80 straight.
Yeah.
With 16 left on the clock.
I think he should have just ran it more, because when you start doing that, teams don't know what you're going to do. They don't know whether he's going to run. It's hard to focus. So doing that at the last 16 seconds left would have just confused them a little bit, and something would have opened up. That's my take on it, because I've seen Prescott run many times before. He hasn't been doing it lately, but he's done it in the past, and I thought that would have been into his favor if he could have did something like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
100%.
My mom's is a Niners fan. She's always been since Jerry Rice, man. So I know she's just going crazy right now.
As you should. Niners, man, we out here. So
yeah. And Ken Norton played for that. Ken Norton Jr. Didn't he play for the?
Yeah.
That was his last year playing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was his last Super Bowl.
Yeah. Because he got a ring with them and Dallas, right?
Yeah, I think he's the only player to win 3 consecutive. 2 with Dallas, and then immediately after to the Niners.
Right.
Yeah.
So Asif, man, we're going to talk about your illustrious career, but first, man, let's start with your childhood. Now, what was your childhood dream?
Man, that's a great question, because I always thought about it. Obviously, I would say, to talk about childhood dream, I have to talk about my role model as a child, which is my dad. My dad, he's still my hero. He inspires me to this day, because, his profession was actually in cardiology. He's a physician. So I just thought, I'm going to follow in his footsteps. I'm going to try to, become a doctor and basically just try to do that. But I at some point I realized, I think it was around, middle of my high school, which is when I realized, medicine and science just ain't my thing, so, and I figured, as a child, even though the kind of the name and the the respect that comes with the doctor title. Obviously my sister was able to do that. My younger brother is actually now in the process of pursuing, that path, right? It was something that really that really kind of resonated with me, in my vision, in my passion. So essentially, as a kid, it was that, and it was also kind of, watching the Niners, Steve Young, Terry T.O., Jerry Rice, right here in the Bay in the 90s. Obviously, like, we were just talking about Ken Norton, right? I mean, the whole squad back in the 90s, Brian Young, and I was thinking, man, it was great. I didn't once think as a kid that I can become a football player. I actually liked pro wrestling, and I thought maybe pro wrestling, because that was my first love. I thought maybe I could pursue a career in that, and then obviously then pro wrestling kind of dissipated. UFC kind of took its place, right, as like the main thing. And so I was exploring that for a little bit, but eventually, it came around full circle to football, sport which I first started watching, and lo and behold, here we are.
No doubt. Looking up to your father as a role model, I did the same thing. And
absolutely. You definitely have to, James.
For real. I did the same. That's why I wanted to talk about it. I did the same thing, but the only difference was you found out earlier that it wasn't for you. Me, I had to get hit upside the head a couple more times. And then my dad was like, well, maybe boxing ain't just for you. Maybe you could do something else in boxing. And that's when I started to venture out of boxing a little bit, because I was there since I was a kid with him every day, every step of the way. So when it came time to doing that, I tried a little bit. It just, like you said, it just wasn't for me. So I moved on to getting into boxing promotions. So I understand. And my brother, he was a big pro wrestling fan. My brother, my cousins, I mean, they talked about, you talk about Andre Giant, the Bulldog, all those guys, man, Jimmy Superfly Snooker, Arnold,
Tony Atlas.
Tony Atlas, oh my God.
My brother used to always put those Charles moves on me. Figure four, man. I didn't think the figure four was real until he put it on me. And you could really use that move and hurt somebody. Boy,
right?
Yeah.
For me, it was the ankle lock, because one of the guests on my show, Ken Shamrock, first our UFC Hall of Famer. Yeah. He introduced it to pro wrestling, because he actually came from UFC to pro wrestling. He crossed over, and then basically he started doing it, and then Kurt Angle kind of took it and ran with it. But the ankle lock was actually effective. I used that a lot.
Right, and that was his submission hold, wasn't it?
It was. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember that now that you said. I remember everybody was saying, "Oh, he's using the figure four." I remember that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. As a kid, I thought all that jive was fake, but it was not. It was not fake.
You gotta be in shape, dog.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a sport. You got to be in shape, because you get hurt, man.
Oh yeah, and what people don't consider is the running across the ring. Because you got to run, and it's a lot of short distance running. So I didn't know until I tried it. My buddy, he's an independent thing. I tried. I'm like, damn, I'm gassed. This is worse than the combine.
You definitely got to be in shape, man.
Yeah.
To do that for wrestling, man.
So, Asif, did you play football in high school and in grade school?
I did not, and I appreciate you asking that, Jason. For me, basically, it was around high school where I really started discovering kind of my passion, my love, for the sport, and eventually what would become my career, both on and off the gridiron. But essentially, kind of around I was actually a knucklehead my first couple years of high school. I wasn't taking school seriously. I wasn't hanging around with the right people. I wasn't making the right decisions. So essentially, my first couple years, my grades faltered. I wasn't academically eligible to play from a high school team, Foothill High School out here in Pleasanton. The coach at the time was Coach Matt Sweeney, and then my junior year, around junior senior, basically he stepped down, and then John Mannion, whose son Sean Mannion is on the Vikings, he became our head coach, and so basically around my junior year, my senior year, that's when I started really kind of considering it. And I really started doing my research, and I really started to kind of really learn more about what my potential was. But I didn't know shit, to quite frankly. Right? I still was figuring it all out, right? So I basically reached out to Coach. I reached out to Coach Mannion. I said, "Hey, Coach, I haven't played. So what do you think my options are? Would it be worth my time to try out?" And basically he said that, he's like, you can come try out, but there's guys who have played all 3 years, guys play 4 years, guys who are returning JVs, who are entering their senior year. So, depending on how they do, they'll probably get preference. And obviously he's like, we've seen guys who have never played before, and you can tell that they never played before. Right. So he said your best bet, is if you want, you come condition with us, during the summer ball, right? And you can also maybe enroll in weightlifting in the senior fall semester, and then you can basically start, working on your body. We can work with you, kind of work on your conditioning, teach you some technique, right? And then maybe around, whenever you graduate, then you can basically, try to walk on a JUCO. And essentially from that point, I basically I enrolled in weight training. I was working with a personal trainer that off season, or that summer off season, kind of that time. And essentially, kind of, Coach Manny basically said, like, oh, he's like, you can go for DB, because he's like, with your size and your frame, if you can work on your technique, work on your backpedaling, work on your center of gravity, then you can definitely kind of be effective in defense. And so there's a funny thing though, during my weight training course, my junior year, or sorry, my senior fall, the teacher of that course was the wide receivers coach for varsity. And I asked him, I'm like, Coach Brown, I'm like, hey, like, and he actually, it's funny, he actually didn't know that it was my senior year. And I said, hey, Coach Brown, I'm about to go try out, I'm about to go try to walk on to JUCO next year. And he said, oh, he's like, awesome, why don't you go play for our team, man? He's like, we could use you. I'm like, Coach, I'm a senior, man. And he's like, why didn't you try out before? I said, because Coach May said when I was shot. He's like, man. He's like, okay, whatever. And so basically he just said that. He's like, and so I said, Coach May said you can do DB. And I said, what do you think about that? He said, okay, yeah. He's like, but can you catch? I said, I don't know, maybe. And he threw me like a few passes, here. And like, I played goalie when I was a kid in grade school, in soccer. And so basically in soccer, that basically teaches you positioning and, exactly. So that was just natural for me. You know what I mean? And so basically then coach said, oh, he's all like, you got some hands. He's like, if you want, you can go out for DB or you can try for receiver. I was like, okay. And so the rest is history from that point. I basically kind of worked with Coach Brown, worked with my trainer, kept conditioning that's that fall season of my senior year. And the ironic thing was, how I told you guys at the beginning of my high school, I wasn't taking school seriously and I was on the verge of not graduating. I ended up doing concurrent enrollment with the JUCO to basically graduate a semester early. So going from not graduating to graduate a semester early and making the honor roll my senior fall. And then basically at that point, that's when I started reaching out to all the JUCOs around here in the Bay. I started reaching out to Chabot College, DVC, CCSF, which are kind of like the powerhouse JUCOs. They usually get like the top recruits all across the country. And they all kind of gave me the same message that, at this point, basically, even since you have no film, you haven't played, it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of walk onto our school and ramp up because, again, you're dealing with guys who played their entire lives, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking for an opportunity at this point.
Right. And they have seniority.
Absolutely. Seniority, the accolades, their coaches, you'll put in the good word for them and, they have the buzz, and
you're basically waiting for somebody to get hurt.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And so to that point, James, basically it was around January. So I graduated January of my senior year. And essentially I have to take a math requirement at San Jose City College. Lo and behold, the head coach at college, Coach Carlton Connor, he basically was thin. He was looking for players for his team for spring ball to kind of see, who's going to make the summer fall, kind of that final roster for summer ball, right? And essentially, then I went to his office. And I had a conversation with him. I was like, Coach, like, my name's Asif, and he's like, oh yeah, you emailed me. And he basically said like, okay, like, have you ever played football before? I said, no, Coach, I haven't. And he said, okay. He's like, what makes you want to play? I said, ultimately it's just been something that, there's been a passion inside me since I was a kid, but I never really pursued it full force. I think now I'm just looking for an opportunity. And essentially he said, okay. He's all like, how are your grades looking? I'm like, well, Coach, it's interesting you asked that because, full transparency, my first 2 years of my freshman sophomore year, I had a 1.0 cumulative GPA.
1.0
on a 4.0 scale. And now 1.0. It's like, you understand what the commitment's going to be? I said, well, sir, I might not, but I just want an opportunity. And he said, okay, can you be our practice on Friday? Sure. I showed a practice. And then lo and behold, Coach Keith Dub Williams, who is now the assistant coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, was my receivers coach over there. Yeah. And he said, what's your name? I'm like, Asif. He's like, okay, we're gonna call you Oz. He's like, let's run some routes. And I ran some routes, and my footwork was horrible compared to everyone else on the team. Because I don't know if you guys know James Jones from the Packers. He won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. He was there. Wow. He was there my first day of college ball. James Jones is there because he worked out with Coach Dub at San Jose State because that's where Coach Dub came from.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. You can imagine a 17-year-old kid just seeing that. That's the first exposure you have to being on a college football field. There's fucking James Jones from the Packers doing the drills with the cones, and you're just like, oh my God, is that the standard?
Right.
But
hopefully that motivated you.
it was, man. It was definitely motivating, and the rest was history from there. Basically, Coach Dub, he said that he's like, oh, it's like one thing I love. He's like you don't quit on the route, you don't play, and he's all like, he's like, if you're committed to keeping your grades up, you're committed to coming to practice, then we'll take a shot on you, and that was it. That's history.
That's cool. So, how did you transition into arena football?
My San Jose City College 08, that season, basically, I was also kind of like, we talked about, James, you mentioned it, like I was still kind of working my way through in the rotation, right? Because freshmen, obviously, returning sophomores, and then a few of my teammates who are also guests on my podcast now, like such as Manu Atakora, who ended up making the Niners practice squad, and a few other guys back in the day. They saw a lot more I was a lot more effective in the slot. And so with that, obviously, it was great, but at the end of the day, for the majority of my first year playing college ball at San Jose City, I wasn't really used. I wasn't really used in terms of kind of like, as like go-to number one option. I was used maybe as a fourth, fifth option, but I was mainly a special teamer, right? So I put in my work on special teams, was using that rotate, and I kind of worked my way through. And then I was looking for my opportunity my sophomore year. Then by the time my sophomore year comes, Coach Dub transfers to Fresno. He didn't transfer. He got a job at Fresno State. He to go coach D1. And so here I am. I'm like, damn, coach is leaving for Fresno State. Like, man, okay, like now what? I'm sitting here, and and obviously it's gonna be a new coaching staff, because that's how JUCO is. If you see on Netflix, that's pretty accurate. New staff every year, a new class coming every year, right? Because it's 2 years, not 4 years, right? So you're not gonna have a 4-year development plan for your players, right? So at this point, basically, I'm just like, okay, like what are my options? Because Coach Dub's leaving, probably my spot's gonna be relinquished, right? So I basically went around and I saw West Valley College, and Coach Tarver, who's now the assistant linebackers coach of the Browns. I basically, I actually didn't even reach out to him, but I saw that he had that connection. So I reached out to Coach Wink over there. Coach Wink is now the head coach of San Jose City College. It's ironic. My last year, my college, 09, Coach Wink was my head coach, and now the head coach of SJCC, my first school. And basically, I actually went to his office. I told him the situation, and he gave me the same spiel as Coach Connor. And basically, I was able to make the team. So my sophomore year at 09, we actually went 0-10. But we actually, even though we went 0-10, we had some really close games. And and because of Coach Tarver and his connections and a bunch of other coaches on the staff, including my other coach Williams, basically, I was able to get some film on special teams, and I was able to get some films kind of working 7-on-7s. Same thing. I was rotational receiver. And so at this point now, my sophomore season is concluded. Basically, there aren't too many schools kind of knocking, for me, because obviously me being undersized and our record, we didn't really get the same buzz as other JUCOs did, because the conference champion usually gets the most kind of buzz or attention based on the recruiting class, and then everyone else who falls in the bomb team like who we were, it's kind of hard for us to get that, right? But I basically saw that, through my coach, just kind of online, like, oh crap, like, the San Jose, the AFL at this point was basically was not a thing, because AFL had basically contracted a couple years prior, but then they're restarting with the San Jose SaberCats, and they're also having this team, the San Jose Wolves, come back with this new league, the AIF. And I'm like, oh wow, AIFA, what is this? Okay, cool. And so I went, and they held a combine at San Jose City College in 2010 January. And Steve Pappen, he played in the AFL, if you guys remember. I don't know if you know him, but Steve Pappen played in the AFL. He was one of the all-time greats, and he basically was there kind of running the combine. And essentially, he basically just said, yeah, if you guys want an opportunity, go out. So I came out, and I ended up not making the cut. But basically then, middle of that year, it was announced that the AFL was restarting. And guess which team is basically was part of like the new league? It's going to be the San Jose SaberCats right here. And so HP Center, they basically had their own combine. I went out there. And man, it was insane for me, because at this point I'm 20 years old and I'm trying to see kind of what it's like. I've only had 2 years of college ball on my belt, but it was a great experience just kind of, being out there. And because of my size and because of my speed, like I clocked a 4.540 at the combine, I was able to kind of just make it a thing, because AFL for small receivers like myself, you tend to have less space to work with, but that tends to work in your favor if you're able to kind of, get out there and know how to run your routes, and you're able to kind of work with a faster game. But obviously, for like NFL and like D1 schools, they tend to prefer bigger, stronger kind of, body receivers, because that tends to be more attractive because of the size and the speed, of the NFL. So
didn't Terrell Owens played arena football, didn't he?
He did, it's crazy. And so actually, yeah, so actually, now we can transition to my career. Kind of 2010, I the San Jose SaberCats, same story as the San Jose Wolves. I didn't make it. So I basically, I mean, I'm still in school, just basically kind of working part-time jobs and, just basically, doing school. And then the Wolves basically they folded and then they moved to Stockton, the Central Valley here in Cali. And they basically the head coach calls me and he said, hey, is this Asif? I'm like, yeah, hey, what's up? And he's like, yeah, he's like, I saw your film. Coach Pap put a good word for you. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. He's like, so it's like, what position you play? You play the R at slot? Do you play the Y? You play the Z? I'm like, I'm primarily use the R. That's what they use me as. And yeah. And so it's okay, cool. He's like, come out. I said, okay, cool. So I came out. This is 2011, right? And so basically, I went out there, and I went through the whole spiel. I was one of the last three, and out of 100 guys there, right? And these are guys who played at Oklahoma, Stanford, all over. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I only have 2 years of JUCO ball under my belt, and the one combine at this point, right? So mind you, I'm just like, okay, cool. Last three, and they basically said, yeah, hey, man, you worked hard. We love what you got, but unfortunately, we don't have a spot for you this year. Keep working. Eventually, we'll be in touch. I said, okay. I'm cool with it. It's a business, right? Keep moving on, right? Okay. So at this point, I'm still in school. I'm working. I'm doing things. Pretty much. Then the next year, then the Wolves, the Stockton Wolves fold, just like the San Jose Wolves the year prior, right. And now they're rebranded as the California Eagles. And now Coach King is now the coach of this new team. And he basically went through a list because he's trying to find new players. And he saw that, he saw my film footage from the last tryout. And he said, hey, he's like, is this Ali? I'm like, yeah, it's Ali. What's up? And he's like, you want to come out? I'm like, coach, man, I already tried twice. Like, it hasn't worked out. Like, are you sure that it's worth my time or worth your time if I come out there and go? And he's all like, man, listen to me, son. Just get out here, put your best foot forward, have a positive mindset, and just deal with the outcome, whatever it may be. I said, all right, coach, I got you. I went out there. I basically, kind of went through the combine, went through the drills. It was down to me, one other dude. And this dude, mind you, was kind of like a TO type, like genetically built, like, full, like, like chiseled, no body fat, like 6'2", like could run like a force, like 2, like you fucking, but basically they saw my effort and they saw the fact I wasn't willing to quit. And they saw that, kind of when it came down to it, he was more concerned about his reps. And me, I whatever they want me to, they said, okay, go outside, go do this. He only wanted to be outside. He didn't want to be in slot.
Right, he was picky.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically at that point, then it came out to me and him, and then we both went home, and then I get called next day. He's all like, and his coach, and he's like, Ali, well, how's it going? I'm like, good, doing good, coach. And he said, all right, cool. He's all like, are you ready for some good news? I said, what do you mean? And he's all like, congratulations, son. You basically got the last spot on team. I'm like, what? I'm like, Mom, I made the team, goddamn, like goddamn, finally, third time the charm, right? I'm like, shit, and I'm just like running around screaming, and but she's like, how much they gonna pay you? I said, oh. I don't know.
That's just the kid in you. You know what I'm saying? It ain't really about the money. You just wanted to play so bad.
Exactly.
Now you gotta be like, okay, Mom, you got a good point.
Exactly.
Let me call him. Hey, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. No, James, you're definitely right. I mean, and the kid in me, at this point, I'm 22 years old, and I'm just so excited, to kind of be on a professional team. Mind you, it's minor league, it's arena, what have you, right? It's just, but it's such a great experience because out here, Stockton Arena, I mean, that we were their last football team, because they went through like a few different kind of iterations through AFL. They had the Stockton Lightning, they had the Stockton Thunder, they had the obviously Stockton Wolves the year prior, then they had us now, the Cal Eagles, right? And so, I mean, it was cool though, because the fan base, most of the times, in the minor league, the AIF scene, you don't have 20, 30,000. You maybe have 5,000, 10,000 people show up to your games, right? Right. But the best part about it is those fans do show up, they're committed and they're dedicated, and they'll go hard, and they'll all support you. And
well, you know what you just told me, listening, and because I was thinking about my son. My son played college football. He played high school and all that, and he was doing good. He was out of Riverdale, Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, was it? It's Riverdale was the town.
Yeah.
Clayton County. So, and then he was doing good. He got a scholarship to Dean College, and he went up there. I think they won a championship, and then he wanted to move back to Georgia because he said he didn't like Massachusetts. And my dad and I was telling him, no, don't go there.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, he wanted to go. And he ended up going to, actually ended up going to Alabama to become a redshirt sophomore at Roll Tide. And then I was like, and he just didn't stick with him. Just listening to you, you kept calling different coaches. I mean, you stayed on top of it just to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the coaches was willing to, they was real nice. They was willing to deal with you the way they talked to you. And, the coaches is what, from what I'm learning, the coaches what can give you that go ahead,
100%. Yeah. Go ahead.
And that's why I was thinking. I was like, man. I said, man, my son, if he would have put the effort, he could have made something,
It's just all about consistency. It's all about adversity. It's all about kind of dealing with adversity. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first reached out, around my senior year of high school, and I was trying to walk on, there were coaches, Chabot, who basically said, you said, unfortunately, because you don't have any experience, you're not going to be able to make it at all.
Exactly.
He brought NFL guys to our workouts, to our practices. There are guys from San Jose State who were getting ready for the pro days, right? Because San Jose State was right next to San Jose City College, right? So, I was kind of spoiled, in that regard. But kind of seeing that kind of told me, man, if I'm here, I'm 17, 18, I'm able to kind of see these guys kind of work out with me. What's to say I can't do what they can do?
Right.
Maybe I'm,
right.
Right.
And eventually,
so
like they say, you hang around 9 great people, you bound to be the 10th one, man. And
100%.
That's what happened in this situation.
Appreciate
exactly.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
No doubt.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So, yeah, basically the Cal Eagles, we had a great year. And, I basically won this boy, if you guys can read that.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Special Teams
nice.
Player of the Year.
No doubt.
Yeah. And then I basically, at this point, kind of back to the money thing, my mom got on my case. She's like, okay, yeah, you're 22 and you're good and all. I mean, you're cool. But at this point, hey, you ain't, this ain't paying no bills. So basically, through the JUCO credits I acquired, while I was staying there, so I never really stopped going to school. I'm still in school. I'm working at pizza, delivering pizzas part-time, right? And basically, I at this point, I'm like, okay, what are my options, right? And I accumulate enough credits to basically go and pursue a health science degree at Cal State East Bay out here in Hayward. I basically finished that in 2 years after enrolling, right after our season basically ended with Cal Eagles in 2012. And I basically then got my first gig and kind of my entry now in kind of the tech IT industry, as a business analyst with UHG out in SAC. And so I basically did that, kind of stuck to that career track for almost, I would say, for a good kind of 5 years, or 4 or 5 years. And then what happened was basically I went back to school, finished my master's while working full time around 2017. And
wow.
At this point, basically, yeah, and I'd appreciate it, yeah. At this point, basically, actually, let me show you guys my wall because this is all my certifications.
Yeah,
right
I'm checking it out.
Yeah. So it's pretty much everything. That's my bachelor's, and that's my master's. These are all certifications I've acquired, since.
No doubt.
Yeah, and so pretty much at this point, basically, I basically end up getting laid off from my job. And so I get laid off from my job after I finish my degree. I'm like, shit, now what? I'm like, okay, you can start contracting, right? But I didn't know too much about contracting. I'm like, I want a full-time gig. So what happens is then Chicago, someone from Chicago, he finds me on LinkedIn, kind of like how Jason, you found me on LinkedIn. He's like, hey, Asif. He's all like, yeah. He's like, you got a great background. Would you be interested in relocating to the Midwest? I was like, I'm in California. I've never dealt with snow. I'm like, I don't even know if I can do anything outside of the state. But let's see. All right, I'm okay. Bet. And so I went there, I interviewed, and ended up getting the gig. And so I basically moved out there December 2017. And the funny thing is, that was the same time Jimmy G became the starting quarterback of the 49ers. I got to watch Jimmy G's first start in Chicago, which is his hometown. So he's in SF. So he moves from Chicago to SF, and I moved from SF to Chicago.
Right.
and we basically trade teams. And so at this point, good.
No, I was saying you guys just passed each other like that.
Yeah. And so at this point, basically, I'm in a new city. I'm working, right, and it's cool and all, but at this point, I'm like, shit, I don't really know anybody out here. So what I found out was just through my own research about football, because I see a lot of my JUCO teammates playing semi-pro. Guys from West Valley, guys from San Jose City, and a lot of guys even from the Eagles, they ended up going to play semi-pro after team folded the 2012 season. Basically, I'm like, cool, let's see semi-pro, and if it's an option, I reached out to a few teams out in Chicago, And then they said, yeah, like, okay, yeah. So like, you played like back in 2012, but like, have you played recently? Like, do you have anything recent? I'm like, nah, I've just been focused on my career. And they said, okay, cool. Like, you can become a coach. I mean, you can become like a GM. I'm like, no, I want to play, dude. Like, I want to get out there and play.
That's what it's about.
That's what it's about. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then they're like, well, I mean, this, they're like, because here's the thing, semi-pro has a multi definition. Some people, it can be amateur, it can be arena, it can be part-time. And for me, it was part-time and kind of that amateur, but also the pro kind of, with the arena side, because we still played against arena teams, because in Midwest, arena football is still big. Like, over there, they got the West Michigan Ironman.
Yeah, because it's right by Canada too, eh?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And pretty much with that, and like you said, James, like kind of the winter time, that's the regional kind of sports teams in the league. So even though the AFL is no longer a league, the teams in the AFL still exist in the East Coast and in the Midwest and in the South. So, like, for example, the team we played against, the Cape Fear Heroes in 2012, the team that went undefeated and blew us out in the championship game, 79-27, they ended up, they're basically still around. They're still there in Fayetteville, NC, North Carolina. So, like, and so same thing in Chicago, right? And so I basically just call around, and then I come find out this team, the Chicago Falcons. Right there. That you see that? Yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, and you might see the photo up there. You might see the collage. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we're gonna give you the full. Yeah. So you can just basically you see all that. And so essentially, I reach out and I speak to kind of Chris, the guy who I reached out to was the captain of the squad, Chris Backen, who's around my age. And then I asked him, like, yeah, I'm like, you guys got any spots? He's like, can you come practice? I said, sure. I can't practice, and I look rusty, but they said, oh, cool. Like, we can definitely use you. And then he said, and I said, okay, cool. So who's the one who makes that decision? He said, coach. I'm like, well, obviously, right? It has to be coach, right? And I said, and I said, where's coach at? And then basically coach comes. And then that was my first time ever meeting Coach Robinson. And I mean, he was just like this gigantic. I never knew that a man could be that big. Coach Rob is like a little bit taller than me, but he's like around 300. But he played in the NFL for the Broncos a little bit, so you can still see a lot of the musculature kind of with his physique. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and so yeah, he's all like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, where you from? I'm like, I'm from Cali. He's like, okay, cool. We're gonna call you Cali. And I said, okay, cool. And then he's like, what's your favorite NBA team? I said, Lakers. I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna call you LA. I said, it's Cali or LA. He's like, we'll stick with LA. And he said, we'll start Cali, but if LA resonates. So basically, and the team is like, yeah, we ain't gonna call you Cali. We're gonna call you LA. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Right.
So yeah.
So you ever get any calls from like the World League?
Nah. The World League of Football, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, the World League of Football. I mean, at that point, it was around April. So March or April, they said that their roster's already done for the spring camp invites.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I reached out everywhere, man. And so yeah, but it was cool because like with the Falcons, I mean,
you've been everywhere else. So I was like, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it was cool because like for me being in the Midwest for the first time. And kind of now it's like, me being, instead of being me being the young 22-year-old, now I'm a 28-year-old veteran for a lot of these new 22, 21, 20-year-old kids, Yes. And kind of, obviously like, my speed isn't the same as it used to be when I was 22. Obviously my route running is still there, but, it's going to be hard for me to get off the line being out of the game for so long, especially against, a lot of these young, fresh, kind of talent, And so, but the best part about it was that kind of working with the guys who I worked with, the young guys, they were great. I mean, like AJ James, Jonathan Fonder, Antoine Robinson, all my teammates. Shout out to y'all if y'all listen to this, man. I mean, Bird Squad, I mean, special teams kickoff squad. Time it is, siren alarm, man. Hey, they sound that alarm shit. It's coming for your head hunters. So yeah, I basically was kind of the captain of like special teams. I was basically like, for kickoff. For punts, for punt block and everything. We traveled across. We played in Wisconsin. We played in Indiana. We played all throughout the state. We obviously played against, like I said, professional teams with professional talent, like the Western Michigan Ironmen. They ended up blowing us out, but it was still a great game. But I still won't forget one of my teammates, on kickoff return, he wasn't looking. And one thing that was preached to me, in college and in arena and everywhere, like, whenever we did special teams practice, basically the one thing coach always says is keep your head on a swivel. Basically, Phil, God rest his soul, he actually passed away recently. He basically, he was looking like this direction because the kickoff was done, or the ball was already received by the other team. But basically we were on kick return. So he was supposed to block, for our return man. He looks this way, and the moment he turns over, the dude is right there, and bam, just like smacks him on the turf, and then, like you can hear like a snap. His collarbone snapped in that game,
Wow.
and then he he posted the video with do y'all remember that what do you call that movie, the Titanic, that song My Heart Will Go On? Like I will remember you. He basically posted it with a repeat, and it's like I remember you every time he gets hit in the turf. I was like, damn, bro, like I can't put myself on blast like that, but hey.
I know that. Me neither.
But man, no, it was yeah. So pretty much, the 2018 season with the Falcons, we end up the season 2-7, but we end up making the conference championship game, and we played against Southern Lakes Blue Devils out in Wisconsin. We end up getting blown out, but I end up making the All-Star team, and then I end up winning Special Teams Player of the Year. Just like I did in 2012. So I basically wrapped up my football career, winning Special Teams Player of the Year and kind of the Iron Falcon Award the following year, 2019. And basically that whole decade, from 2010 to 2019, got to be kind of in and out of the game, and basically you kind of establish myself, as one of the premier kind of special teamers, both in the AIF and the RFL. And also shout out to my other teammate Daniel Calvaris, my brother, my kicker, my last season. We're still keeping touch to this day. Wash U, D3. Hey man, y'all don't be sleeping on Wash U. You know what I mean? Because they got great talent. And he was he's one of my brothers, and we still keep in touch to this day. So shout out Dan if you listen to this. And yeah, no, I'm really grateful and appreciative to my coaches, my teammates, and everyone who made my career possible, and all opportunities that came with it. So
cool, brother. So let's segue into another subject here. Everybody is born with a purpose, something that they're destined to do in this life, to help other people, to be a blessing on this earth. So at this point of your life, would you say that you're living in your purpose, life after football?
That's a great question, man. And I love that question. I would say, yeah. I would say, because part of my platform, my podcast, Digitally Dreaming Off the Gridiron podcast, it's about life after football, and it's about kind of talking about what is your purpose now. And, that harkens me to another guest on my show who's coming back on, Marcus Ogden. He ended up playing the NFL in the league. He also played in the AIF. That's how, we connected on LinkedIn too. Just like how we did. Yeah. And basically, he basically talked about how he almost went bankrupt, but he ended up transitioning to basically become a public speaker and a keynote kind of author too, with his own platform. And that's how he fulfills his purpose. I feel like now in my career now in IT as a consultant with my LLC, and also kind of what I do, with my podcast, my platform, and just kind of the impact I've had, to other athletes, most recently, my most recent guest, is Asif Ali Muhammad, who's a rugby player out in Ghana. He basically, for him to ask for my autograph, that tells me that, even though I'm no longer playing, my purpose is being fulfilled through my other outlets, through my other avenues, through my podcast platform, through my career in consulting, and just through giving back in any which way I can to others.
Oh, that's phenomenal, man. What kind of consulting do you do?
So basically my career, it's kind of, I would say it's technology focused. So kind of, I would say somewhat, these terms may not mean, you guys may get confused. I'll keep it simple. Kind of like, sometimes, a company has a project, right? So they need someone to come and manage that project, manage the timeline, manage the team. That's kind of the scope of the consulting I do for various teams, various projects. I also do speaking, in the tech industry. I'm actually going to be speaking this Friday at Group Futurista. I'm also speaking next month at PMI AlphaSig to kind of talk about different tools and technologies and techniques that different organizations can adopt. So it's basically twofold. I basically do project management. I help with actual delivery of software and different mobile applications and products, but I also do speaking to kind of help organizations mature and refine their approach to delivering those products.
Oh, that's great, man. So many football players, they have, huge problems walking away from the game and transitioning to corporate life, dealing with all kinds of mental health issues that we learned about last season, James. It's not an easy thing at all. How did you make that transition?
Yeah, I think, and that's a great question, a great point, Jason. And James, I think that it's really hard to transition kind of with all the different types of contact that we take. as athletes, and for me too. I mean, I was talking to one of my other guests, Lofa, about this, basically because he played for the Seahawks, 3-time Pro Bowler, All Pro, and he was a linebacker, and he said he sustained 19 concussions throughout his career. So the mental health aspect of that is definitely a real thing for me. Special teams, I mean, I'm thankful to the higher power that I only had maybe one minor concussion. That basically helped me, be able to limit or minimize the impact of the mental health issues that many players face after retiring, right? So, I mean, for me, the transition, I guess I was more fortunate and blessed than others to just, have had good coaches to teach me kind of proper technique, and also just in my career, not to be on the more kind of I guess lucky side of a hit. As opposed to others, right? And so, for me, being able to obviously my mom as well, kind of, being on my neck to make sure that I get my school done and actually get a job. It was easy for me because I think the cutthroat nature of kind of being cut twice in the AIF and the AFL, finally making a team, having that team fold, it made me realize nothing is permanent.
So that's why you guys go. That's why football players, basketball players, baseball players. That's why they go to school, because you're not going to be able to play forever.
Right.
And you have to entertain that thought at some point in time in your career. So that way, when it does happen, you're not lost in the sauce somewhere and trying to figure this out. And hopefully you did the right thing by making some good investments if you was very successful. Even if you're not successful, you still got to make some good investments that way, so that way you can be able to function after football's over, or you're going to be at the gas station pumping gas.
And it's crazy how James, that sounds so commonsensical, but so many struggle. Let me put in perspective for you guys. My net worth is more than Andre Rison and Terrell Owens.
What?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. You know how much Terrell Owens made in his career? $70 million.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Andre Rison made $17 million. What happened? You know what I mean? Like,
well, we have the same issues in boxing. Fighters, they come from the streets. They don't take the time. The fighters don't take the time in learning the other side. They just go as is. So we try to teach them now with the American Boxing Association how to invest. We teach the young guys this, invest. Do a lot of these guys, they don't want nothing to do with it. They just want to fight, and that's that, and spend the money like a rapper.
Yeah.
But the rappers get royalties.
Yeah.
Right.
So as long as their music playing in China, they get a couple of dollars,
Facts. Hey, no, big dog. I mean, no, you're speaking facts, on this podcast. I mean, these little things, what I mean? Like you said, like, when you spend money, let's say you want to go, buy a new car or kind of buy a new chain, or, because in my career now, I make much more now than I ever did playing. I'm fortunate to be grounded, because to remember how much little I made as opposed to someone in the league. Right. And to make sure that, hey man, every penny you got to pinch, and through real estate investments, through other investments, to what you guys are doing with the All American Boxing Foundation, right? That is, I mean, y'all basically doing God's work. So tip of the cap to y'all, for making sure that you educate the next generation to help them, succeed.
No doubt, definitely. My dad was frugal with his money as well. So so I come up with that. He used to say, I just say, Daddy, we rich. He was like, nah, I'm rich, not you. No, not you.
What the funny thing about that is, dog? Let me tell you, my dad is worth, I think, he's a multimillionaire, at least, right? And I always say, you're rich. And then he's all like, nope, I'm poor by definition, because, if my name isn't in Forbes, then I'm poor. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah, because my dad's the same way. He never thought about it like that. He never thought like it was just, nah, I got to go to work. We said, what do you mean? You're retired. You mean work? Yeah, I got to work, man. I got to go. So I'm on vacation. Call me when I'm on vacation. On vacation? What are you talking about? We used to get confused because his terminology stayed the same, like he was working construction.
Wow.
I got to go work today. I got to get in bed by this time. Maybe when I get my vacation, we'll go do this. What?
Man, and you know what? I'm sure you can attest to, like me, James, like that helped me. That kept me grounded. And just like, I think that's another reason why, I didn't have the same problems. I'm not gonna lie though, there were some players, now that I'm 31, I can admit this, on an open platform. Some of my teammates use me when they saw my consulting career take off. They actually did use me for money. I made some really bad financial decisions. I ended up taking some setbacks. I ended up, investing some real estate I shouldn't have without doing my research.
That's all trial and tribulation, man. You learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You learn. You got to learn, man. You're not gonna just walk out there and just pop off.
Yeah,
Right.
But it's crazy. It's crazy how you do someone who's close to you can get close to you, through your experiences on the gridiron, try to manipulate and get what they need out of you,
Right.
and then basically I had to cut people off. I mean, Jason, I know we talked, prior to this podcast about my social media.
Yeah.
Ever since I got rid of my social media in May, I've had such more peace of mind because I don't have people inbox me asking me for shit. Keep it a buck. I'm keeping it a buck. Like if I showed you guys my DMs, like from my Facebook, my IG, from how many people are just in my DM, dudes who I played with, who I knew, right? Ask me or criticize whatever like that. Like, man, hey man, like I'm a boy. Hey man, like, can I get, hey man, like, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah.
You're gonna be like, look, I got bank written on something?
Yeah. You feel me? So, I mean, I feel like it's, it's a blessing and a curse because, my platform is now growing outside of not having social media presence. But I know if I had my social media presence, it would grow more, like tenfold, right? But but my peace of mind is my most valuable asset or commodity.
That's right. That's right. Exactamundo.
100%. So, Asif, how can people find you on your podcast?
So you can find the podcast, Digitally Dreaming Off the Gridiron podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, and now on Google Podcasts. And I'm very happy about that. So we just made it to Google Podcasts today. We have some upcoming guests, Marcus Ogden, former NFL veteran, coming on 28th. And then we have Ken Shamrock, UFC Hall of Famer, coming on 29th. And I'm hoping to get another 3-time Super Bowl champion who I'll announce once it's confirmed. So, we make some moves we make some moves over here, so Digitally Dreaming Off the Gridiron podcast. Check us out, subscribe, like, share, spread the word.
What's your Instagram?
I'm on IG, bro.
What?
I'm not on IG. I got rid of it. Yeah.
You got rid? Okay.
Yeah.
No doubt. So who you got for the game, man? Who you think gonna win this thing?
Damn, boy. I want my Niners. I want them to get it. Yeah. I want them.
You think they're gonna get through? Who they play? Green Bay?
Green Bay. No, I see that. I'm nervous. I'm big time nervous. I really,
but Green Bay don't be playing that well against some of the hungry teams.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I noticed that. So
it'll be interesting.
I want my boy Tom Brady. I got my boy Tom Brady. I want to see Tom do it again, man. Do as much as he can before he goes home.
Right.
Man, how much has he done already?
He still wants to play. Father Time giving him a pass.
Yeah, Father Time definitely giving him a pass. I mean, we'll see how the Rams do this weekend when they go up there because the Rams did beat them in the regular season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they don't have all the firepower that they used to have.
No, they don't. Especially with AB. Especially with AB and Godwin now. I mean, ooh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So we'll see.
No.
All right, man. We really appreciate you being on the show, man. It was awesome.
Hey, man, appreciate y'all having me on the show, man. No, I really appreciate, you guys give me this opportunity to spread the word on my platform. And, James, and Jason, when I do restart my IG, y'all be the first ones to know. So
all right, that's what's up. That's what's up.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, brothers. Take care.
All right, man. Take care. That concludes our interview with Asif Ali. Thank you for watching Living on Purpose podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.